Welcome to the GRISWOLD Method. Dr. Matt Griswold, giving you a little piece of what's going on in my mind. Really being able to haven't jumped in this studio setting in a while. We've done some interviews and some fun stuff, so we thought we would do a studio series or a studio episode. So I wanted to jump in with what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. This would be applicable to you. I don't want to waste your time. I don't like my time wasted on content for the first 10 minutes and then you get into the meat and potatoes. We jump right in on this stuff. So what I want to do is just jump right in on what I'm doing and what I've been studying. I've been studying a whole lot of the art of how to communicate using your hands and your face and your smile and your body. And so I'm going to compress a lot of information that I really enjoyed this book, Cues by Vanessa Van Edwards. This is my second time through the book. And so I thought, well, you know what would be really good is I could share some synopsis points that I think are fantastic on how we communicate. And I really believe it'd be able to help you in your business, in your personal relationships, and being able to just communicate with people effectively. I talk a lot. I'm on these social profiles. I have a lot of patients that we see in a day, but there are times where I am an introvert, and there are times that I want to be an introvert, and there are times that I do certain things that make you know that I'm being an introvert. I don't want to speak. You've seen those people in the airport. They have a hat on, earphones in, the whole thing is like, do not talk to me. But the opposite is true. And so how do you make yourself come talk to me, approach me? I'm approachable, I'm likable, I'm lovable, all the things like a puppy dog, I guess. How do you do that? How can you portray that? And so if you find yourself in those awkward positions and places, not knowing what to do, I hope after this 20 minutes, it's effective that you can use that stuff to apply. And so let's jump right in as we begin to talk about, and I wanted to start with this study. And the reason I'm starting with this study is because it was something that was happening in my practice. And I'm going to give you a personal story to attach to this. But the study says this. It's a Princeton study that says they found that highly charismatic people, likable and compelling people, demonstrate a special blend of exactly these two things, these two characteristics. They demonstrate, the most successful people on the planet, the most successful salespeople on the planet, demonstrate warmth and competency equally. What does that mean? Warmth. That is how, I'm a chiropractor, if I'm a physician, that's how my bedside manner is. It's how I look you in the eye. How do I connect with you? How do I shake your hand? If you're a child, how do I kneel down to you? That's warmth. Competency is how well do I know my job, how confident I am that I'm going to be able to help you, and how confident, if you're in any type of sales position, is the goods or service that you're able to provide. How competent are you? And they say that this study says 82% of all of our impressions come from those two things. So I'm going to give you an applicable study. You can see I've got a whiteboard behind me. We're going to talk about some of that stuff, but I'm going to give you some application in my own life that I found that this is what stemmed this. I have 3 chiropractic clinics, and the chiropractic clinic that I work at my main office, I had a doctor that was working with me, and he was hard of hearing in his left ear. And I noticed that my close rate was lower than his close rate. And I hate that stuff. So I look at that stuff. And when I say a close rate, is like who commits to care and how do we sell the care? And are the people committing? Are they staying? These are all numbers that we run in our practice. It's called a close rate. His close rate was better than mine. And I couldn't figure it out. I know the information. Heck, I taught him how to do what he does. He was a student. I'd been in practice for 9 years at the time that he came in. I think maybe a decade. So I taught him his technique. I taught him how to read films. Everything clinically, I taught him how to do. What I found is he was showing more warmth and I was showing more competence. And competence is not the way to get the close or get to the sale. In other words, if you're going in and leading in with all the features and the benefits and the awesome things that you have, but you have no warmth in it and you're very confident, overconfident, a little intimidating, a little bit aggressive, people aren't going to buy. And so what happened was, what I found out from reading this book is that he couldn't hear out of his left ear, so he would always turn his right ear and lean in. This is a demonstration of warmth. This is a demonstration of caring about what you're saying and how you're saying it, because anytime you lean into somebody, it means you're engaging, you want more, you're listening, you're literally telling that person you want more. And so in my own clinic, I saw a change when I began to lean in and tilt. He didn't even know he was doing it. He couldn't hear. But when I was reading the book. So we're going to jump into that. That's what I want to talk about today. And that's what we're going to do. And so my wife helped me write this because if I wrote this, you would never be able to read it. And we would spend most of the time deciphering what it is. But here's the idea. You need to end up somewhere in here. Okay? Somewhere in there. Somewhere a combination of being warm and competent. This is what people like, they pay again for, they return to the surface, okay? So here's a good example of what you might hear if you're a little too warm, okay? If you're a little too warm. A strong desire to be liked. Example, I always feel comfortable around you. You're such a sweetheart. I feel like I've known you forever. Now, that's not a problem. These are all excellent things because if you're a service provider, they need to trust you. There needs to be a consistency of trust, but if there's too much of that, then they don't believe that maybe you have the clinical skills or the skill set or the product doesn't have the overall, it's not going to be able to get the job done because of the competence skills that are, you see the dichotomy there? Okay, warm people are often trustworthy, but not often appeared to be powerful, right? You think about a warm person might be your grandmother, but you don't think of your grandmother as the CEO of a company. Kind of a good example there. Compassionate, but not always competent. Friendly, but not always impressive. Now, I'm not saying that we don't want to hug a warm person and they're not great to have in your lives. But if you have too much of one, you've got to have some of the other. Otherwise, you're going to suffer in your sales, you're going to suffer in your interactions and your relationships. Highly competent. This is where I tend to go to in times of stress. Or often. You can be intimidating. You can be hard to read. You can be on the edge or seeming on the edge often. As a matter of fact, there was a study out of the American Medical Association journal that wrote that doctors who were poorly rated with warmth got sued 2 times more often than those that appeared warm, no matter what the clinical excellence was. In other words, even if they were a great doctor and they were a jerk, they got sued more often. They had better results, better lifetime outcomes. Their people lived longer. They got sued more often because they were jerks. Really interesting study out of the AMA that says, don't be a jerk to your patients. I mean, it didn't say that, but you get the overall idea. Have a dichotomy of both. And so when we look at this, these are ways that you can do that. And these are the ways that you can find warmth or competence if you're lacking in one. A good exercise would be ask your spouse or your team, am I exhibiting more warmth or more competency? In this moment, I'm staring directly at a camera and I'm very handsy, like moving my hands a lot. That's a lot of competency, right? It's a whole lot of pointing and jerk movements and those types of things, not much warmth. And it doesn't mean that I don't care. What it means is that I'm coming aggressive at you. Okay, so here's some ways that you can do that. Okay, so here we are. Ways that you can show warmth and competence. Tilting is a warmth cue. Nodding is a warmth cue. Eyebrow raising is a warmth cue. Savor smiles, touch, and mirroring. Let me talk about those really quickly. Tilting. This is what like my doctor was doing. Oh, that's good, Miss Mary. I'm so sorry to hear about your sciatica. Right. Oh, he seems so warm. Well, I can hear out of both ears, so I sat like this. It's a different look. Feels different when you're watching me. Nodding. You know when somebody's agreeing to you and they're listening. Watch the podcast interviews. You'll see people nodding in every one of them. They want the other person to know that they care and that they're listening and that they're engaged. It's a natural thing, but guess what? You can do it even if you're not. Even if you're not engaged and you want that person to engage in you or you want to give a charismatic personality, this is a tip to be able to say that you care and show that you care. Eyebrow raising and savor smiles. These are easy, right? We raise our eyebrows when we like things. We frown. This is very simple. How are you communicating and what is your body saying when you're talking? Touch and mirroring, this is exactly the same. I mean, we all know that if I'm going here and you're going there, that this is not going to go anywhere because we're blocking each other. We don't want to be a part of it. The conversation's over. So these are super easy tips. I'm going to give you a couple more. Palm up cue, openness and trust. They invite questions. What do I mean by that? Palm up, Vanna White. That's what I thought. Yeah. Remember Vanna? She would point. Or is this? What does that look? What does that do? Right? So when you're having a conversation, you want one of your employees or one of your team members to come help you at something. How does it feel? How are you going to get a response when you ask them this way or like, let's go? Different, right? How does your body communicate what you're trying to get across? Palm downer exhibits power and dominance, and it commands or directs. I want that. I'd like to have that. You see that? Fix that. Head tilting, universal sign of agreement. The blocking cue we just went over. Distancing, a distancing cue to look for is looking up and to the left or looking up and to the right. That stare off is not a good thing. The stare off is a bad thing. Clap it out of them and say, hey, I'm sorry if I'm not holding your attention. How can I help and be more focused that way? Okay. And then we move down here into competency cues, power postures, flexed eyelids, explanatory gestures, and palm flashes. These are all power moves, right? Big, like when I get it all the time with these guys that come into the chiropractic office that want to flex on me because they got bigger muscles, and I'm there to help them. So it's like this. I won't mirror it back because they want to be the biggest guy in the room. So they flex like this, or they hold them. You've seen it 100 times, right? Explanatory gestures, big open gestures like I do sometimes can be a little bit intimidating. If someone's nervous and you're moving quick and you're jerking around like that, explanatory gestures. I actually found this because I stumbled across an article from a pediatrician who talked about communication and how he treated kids. Kneeling down to a kid's level, eye-to-eye conversation is how he earns trust with the child so that he can do the care that he needs. It's not about what he's saying. It's very much about how he's acting, okay? Somewhere here, right? Somewhere in the middle, danger zone, distancing, self-soothing, blocking, shame, bothered face. Obviously, we know you want out of the conversation or you're telling me or they're telling you they're done. Go here. Mirror them. Start to tilt. Lean in. These are the ways that you can actually take somebody out of the danger zone back into the conversation and re-engage. Okay? As we jump through that, but I moved all the way here. Warmth, competence, somewhere here. Somewhere in here is when people absolutely know that you care, that you're there, and that you're listening. And can you establish that on a reoccurring basis? And that's a self-check. That's where your communication comes into a self-check. I have here 4 ways to know and check, and this is what she lists in the book, Vanessa Van Edwards, just so that we're crystal clear on exactly what I'm doing and reading here. She lists 4 ways to be able to show charisma if you're a leader in your business or you're an employee in your business. So I'd like to share those with you, okay? So the 4 ways. Number 1, lean like a leader. Lean like a leader. What do you lean in for? You lean into hear better. You lean into touch. You lean into smell. You lean into taste. What do you do with food? What do you do with wine? It's an immediate. So when your employee comes to you with a problem, even if you don't care as much as they think you should, just lean in, right? Tell them that you do care. Show them that you care. Let them be heard, but let them know that they're heard, not just by you being quiet and turning an ear to them. Lean in. Lean in like a leader. When you get something, and this is really neat. I'm not going to go back to. I want you to hear this. Leaning forward, that's where it is right here. Leaning forward activates the left frontal cortex of the brain. This is where desire and motivation comes in. I did it to you just now. I busted. I literally leaned into you just now because at that point, I'm looking and focusing on desire and motivation. As we do this podcast, I lean in. If you ever see me shoot a video, I stand on my toes and lean in for those exact reasons. And I didn't even know that this was a communication technique. It's just something that we do. Number 2, open body, open mind. This is an interesting thing that we all have seen, we've all been a part of. In that chapter, she discussed this guy does a website where he's standing like this, and I think he was a physical therapist. He does a website where he's standing like this, and he runs a test on the website, and he got 50% less clicks from this posture versus just down by his side. I used to have that picture on my website. We had to change it, but I used to have that picture on my website. I was like, oh my gosh, that was us. Another way to say open, another way to communicate to somebody and be in charisma and be in agreement is showing them that you care by open body, open mind. Maybe it's this, maybe it's just cleaning off your desk. Have you ever walked into somebody's office and they began to clean up the desk, and how important did you feel? It felt like they were going to be paying more attention. It doesn't matter if you're shifting. I might have lost my notes. But if you're shifting, if you're shifting your desk around, whatever that is, what you're communicating is whatever they're bringing to you is more important than what is currently on your desk. Communication technique, right? I love that. I love that stuff. So cool. So neat. I just wanted to make sure that I covered that. When you need to create and spark more ideas, want to be more open or imaginative, uncross your arms. This allows you to open up to the universe. It opens up your brain. You don't cross over that cross-call brain. Here's the gig. I love that stuff. And we move next to number 3 is fronting. Front, forward. Okay? 3 T's. Toes, torso, and top. When you're communicating with somebody or they are communicating with you, you need to be aware of where those 3 T's are. Where are their toes? If they're pointing at the door, the sale is almost over. You need to backtrack and figure out where you lost them. Toes. If you're having a conversation at a cocktail hour or networking and they're pointing towards the door, they're ready to leave. Where is their torso? How are they positioned towards you? Is it a half turn? I get those hugs. I hug a lot of people. I'm a chiropractor. I get those those partial hugs, right? It's like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do the full hug. What is that telling me? That person is not open. They don't trust me yet. There's a problem there between our trust factor. That's what it means, right? So I break it down and say, we're going to trust each other already. 3 toes, torso, or top. Fronting is a signal of respect and that you care, to show that you are there and that they are valued. You ever you ever have a conversation? I know I had a lot of principal conversations growing up. You ever have a conversation with the principal and she turns the body over here and the head comes back over here? Does this look like I give a damn? It just doesn't, right? Because all of us, like my toes, torso are here, and the only 2 out of the 3 are pointing the other direction. Only 1 is looking at you. So be aware on what your body positioning is when you're having a conversation, whether it be a sales conversation or a conversation with your staffing member or employee, where are you putting your body? And number 4 is be smart with space. We all know this is an easy concept, but when I read it, the lights went off times 12, right? So there's 4 different areas of space that we need to be smart with. There's 4 zones. If you can think about like you being a bullseye. So there's 4 zones. There's 0 to 18 inches, which is the intimacy zone. Number 2 is the personal zone, 18 inches to 4 feet. Then number 3 is the social zone, which is 4 feet to 7 feet. And then number 4 is 7 feet and beyond. Really neat information here. When you go to the bar, where do you sit? Do you sit facing each other typically at the bar? Do you, when you're in the car, do you sit facing each other in the car? No. You see, these are where the most private conversations happen. Our eyes, our gaze aren't at each other, because if I look you directly in the eye, that is super intimate. And I don't want to tell you all my intimate details. If I have to look you in the eye and tell you my intimate details, I would rather just tell you my details. So if you're having communication problems, you ever notice that your spouse or your significant other, you can work through some of the most important stuff on a road trip or a long drive? It's the same reason. It's because you lowered their overall stress about their zone, where they are, their intimacy zone. And now you can expose more personal details because you're sitting next to each other and you're not locking in eye to eye. It feels a little less invasive. It feels a little less nerve-wracking, but you can tell how your feelings are. This is why sitting at the bar is a funny, accurate thing, right? That's what they do. Can you imagine for years and years and years, guys have sat next to the bar and poured out their details to the bartender and the next guy or the guy next to him and never looked at each other because it's easy to do that. It's the eyes, it's the gaze. The personal zone. I work in the personal zone. That's where I live. Okay, I see patients in the personal zone and in the intimate zone. So those are the places that I have to be. This becomes a scenario where it's important for me to maintain hygiene, but confidence and trust. So in the personal zone, they need to know where you are. Females need to know where your hands are all the time. When I approach a table, I don't ever approach the table, put my hand on a lady's lower back. I always approach a table and I'll touch by the calf or by the foot because that's a less severe zone, less intimate, less personal, so that I can approach the patient the way they know I'm there and I'm not surprised. Okay? Sum this whole thing up. Really want you to analyze, how are you communicating and what is your body doing? What are you saying? This is something I point a lot and I'm having to learn to turn my hands upright. What are you saying with your body? What are you saying with your mouth, and do they match? What are your goals for the communication that you're trying to have? Okay? If you're going into a situation where you need to have power, use these. If you're going into a place where you need some more kindness, use these. If you're just looking to be overall trusted, blend it. But you have the power to communicate whatever you want to communicate, not just by your mouth, but by how you move your body. It doesn't mean you have to be an expert or get paranoid or really get fixated on how you move your body. But these little tips here, these little tricks are ways that you can connect with people and make them feel like you have been with them for longer periods of time if you're a service provider. Make them feel like you connected with them, and when you were there with them, that you truly were engaged. I'm just having a hard time understanding why this would be a bad thing. If your interaction with somebody is more meaningful to them by some small cue that you gave, I think this 20 minutes was worth it. And so as I wrap this up, be aware of how you're communicating. As I begin to study more in depth on how I'm communicating, I hope it's evident to you as you watch, but be aware on what you're saying, what you're doing while you're saying it. Right on? Not just what you're saying, what you're doing while you're saying it. I can't say that this is my information. Absolutely, Vanessa Van Edwards. She has some fantastic stuff. I think it's called The Science of Humans. She has some courses you can take on studying humans and studying human fear. I'm just in this right now. And I hope that blesses you, especially if you have meetings, you have employees and team members that you need to meet with. Make sure that you give them the respect that they desire, and because what you say out of your mouth doesn't necessarily mean as much if your body's saying something different. Thanks again. The GRISWOLD Method. No clue what episode. I hope you enjoyed. Talk soon.